Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Young Dad Gaming Reviews, the series where I review, recount and reminisce the games that I grew up on, as well as decide when or if my son will be growing up on the same games, and which ones should be avoided for now due to extreme violence, suggestive themes, and or because the game just sucks. Next up, Tomb Raider: The Last Crusade, Revelation. I lost the book for it.
One woman is about to face her ultimate destiny.
Released in November 1999, Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation was originally planned to be the final game in the series, as this cheesecake was starting to taste a little bland, from idols pumping out sequels every single year, and fans beginning to see the repetition of the franchise. Revelation was a great inclusion to the series, but did this game deserve praise because of how it stands as a Tomb Raider game, or does it deserve hate for being another rehashed sequel that was only developed for a paycheck? Well, let's hop into our sidecar motorcycle, strap in, and let's try to stop the apocalypse.
And so, we breach the Sanctum of the Ancients, the first footfall.
Beginning with a flashback of sorts to Lara in her teenage years with her mentor Werner von Croy, searching for an artifact known as the Iris in Angkor Wat. This intro stage doubles as both an introduction to Lara's tomb raiding and as a training level. And thirdly, now that I think about it, an introduction to Lara's backpack. While this accessory has never had a spotlight moment, it does get its own intro. That's neat, I guess. Not sure why it was needed, though. After finding the Iris, Von Croy gets a little bit Bilbo on Lara.
Yeah? No, I am the renowned archaeologist adventurer, Werner von Croy, and you will do as I say. Go to the wall and pull the lever.
What was it you said? Disrespect is the route to carelessness?
I am weary of this.
He takes the Iris, to which, surprise, the tube begins to shake and collapse. Von Croy's leg gets trapped, and as Lara goes to save her mentor, the bridge to reach him gets destroyed, so she has no choice but to leave him behind before succumbing to the collapsing ruins herself. Cut to the distant future of 1999, Lara is back in Egypt and now searching for the Amulet of Horus with her guide. We'll just call him Alfred Molina. You'll see why later. After some classic Tomb Raider action, she finds the amulet and unknowingly begins unleashing the Dark God Set from his prison. After escaping another collapsing tomb, Lara gets betrayed by her guide. Big shock there.
My trusty companion returns.
The amulet, woman!
Throw me the idol, I throw you the whip!
She continues reading the inscription on the amulet, which causes a small explosion, lightning bolt, incapacitating her guide, giving her a chance to get away. At this, the player learns that Von Croy survived the cave-in in Angkor Wat all those years ago, and he's determined to get the amulet for himself. Later, Lara meets up with her friend Jean-Yves, who tells her that she's made a terrible mistake. And I really like this plot. Usually it's stop the bad guys from getting the relic before they cause the end of the world or unleash some evil being. But in The Last Revelation, Lara is the one who causes the evil to be unleashed, so it's up to her to make things right. To do so, Lara has to visit the tombs of Karnak, which holds the information on how to undo this whole mess. Once in the tombs, Von Croy traps Lara and steals the amulet. Here the story gets a little convoluted, so I'll just gloss over it with no context. Lara needs shiny armor to make God appear to stop Set. With Von Croy now in possession of the amulet, he gets possessed by Set, and the apocalypse is now happening in the form of plagues. Ancient beasts begin to appear around Cairo, such as this giant sand serpent thing, which is actually pretty awesome. After defeating the serpent with a suicidal sergeant,
Whatever it takes for my country. In the next life, then, my friend.
Allahu Akbar!
Lara gets the amulet back from Von Croy / Set and his packle of jacks, finally heading to Giza to find the statue of Horus to wake him up and defeat Set. The funny thing is, even after doing literally all of that, and I hate when movies do this since it renders the entire adventure pointless, Set destroys the armor before Horus can be summoned, so Lara just decides to lock Set in this temple forever using the amulet. Couldn't we have just done this from the beginning? Once again, we are dealt with a crumbling tomb where Lara just barely makes it... What? Wait, what? A funny thing is, even though I knew that Lara died in this game, I had absolutely forgotten about it by the time I beat this game. Can you blame me? There's still 8 Tomb Raider games to go. As far as finales are supposed to go, I won't lie, Tomb Raider 4 really did feel the most epic out of the lot, despite this one being the only game focused in one location instead of around the world. Lara makes a mistake and almost causes the apocalypse. Her mentor turned nemesis even realizes the error of his ways and in an act of redemption tries to save Lara, and Lara accepting her fate as the floor crumbles around her but saying how happy she is to see Werner back to his original self.
You back, Werner? No more Set?
No time. Your hand, Lara. Give me your hand. Take my hand. I can pull you to safety.
Good to see you again, Werner.
It's emotional, it's epic, and it's a perfect ending in my opinion. One that should have remained an ending. Core design stuck very closely with the motto, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is good and bad in this case. Tomb Raider 4 is still extremely fun to play and any returning player can just jump right in and feel at home. It still runs off the Tomb Raider engine, all moves from the previous games are still here, as well as a few new ones again such as rope climbing and swinging, and being able to move around corners while hanging from ledges. No joke, this move changes how tomb raiding is done. These few inclusions force you to look at locations in a new way and how to maneuver around them. Once again, the enemies feel very much like Tomb Raider 3 and are never much of an issue, until you start meeting the enemies that can only be killed by explosions. This can get a bit annoying, but luckily in this game, Lara has gotten another upgrade for her weapons, including a magnum and a crossbow. A neat addition to this inventory is the ability to swap between different kinds of ammunition for the shotgun, grenade launcher, and crossbow, such as explosive bolts. There are also quite a few moments of unkillable enemies that just sap health from Lara for a few seconds and then disappear. A very cool addition to the Tomb Raider formula is instead of advancing to the next level / loading screen like in the prior games, apart from the flashback section, you have roughly 3 to 4 large areas that are interconnected to different sections. Kinda like hub worlds and levels. This help makes Lara adventure feel massive even though you're confined to one country. The bad side to this though is if you get lost and not sure where to go, there are a lot of options to choose from and only one correct answer. Luckily, the team at Core finally learned to show us what our actions do. I've complained in the past about pulling levers or switches and not knowing what they do. Now when you pull a lever or switch, for the most part, a small cutscene will show you what has been affected. Returning to the franchise again are the vehicles. While they're enjoyable, yet still being difficult and feeling very stiff, they mostly feel tacked on because vehicles have been in other games. And look, you even get a motorcycle with a sidecar, just like in the last Crusade. This game is large and confusing to where I feel like if this is your first time playing, you will need a walkthrough more than ever before. And I believe I'm saying that with every sequel in this franchise. The levels and puzzles that you can figure out on your own still help you feel immersed in the game, but honestly there are some puzzles that make absolutely no sense. For instance, I was able to figure out what I needed to do in this puzzle and it didn't take me that long to figure it out. But this rotating wheel here is completely random and this causes it to really make the player think that they might be doing something absolutely wrong or that there's more to the puzzle. Nope, just brute force. And no Tomb Raider puzzle should ever be about brute forcing the answer. The library is the level that comes to mind where I think it's done both awesomely and terribly at the same time. It's so massive and all the connected rooms really make the level feel grand. But if you miss one thing, you have so many rooms you'll need to recheck to see if you missed anything, which could sometimes just mean something you need to interact with, that you didn't know you could interact with. The coolest puzzle, I think, was when you needed to make a sacrifice of water, fire, and earth. The whole area is very maze-like, but intertraversable, making backtracking easy if you missed any essential key items. You need to pour water, gasoline, and sand into 3 bowls and then use a torch to ignite the gasoline. Other than what I just mentioned, there aren't many new additions to the formula, and that was one of the biggest reasons this series began to go downhill. It was becoming repetitive, and the developers were getting exhausted being forced to pump out a new Tomb Raider every single year. This was the biggest reason for killing Lara off at the end of this game. As far as it goes, I think Tomb Raider 1 through 4 is the definitive classic Tomb Raider experience, and each is perfect in their own unique ways. I know we're still looking at polygons and grid textures on the walls and the floor, but good God, they keep finding ways to make these games look still nice to look at. Even though you are in Egypt for almost the entirety of the game, each area still manages to look unique and varied. There are even new variants of missions, such as on the back of a moving train. This level was short and very interesting. I think platforming adventure games on the back of a moving train will always be cool. Character designs are decent, and young Lara actually looks pretty cute, and the pigtails are a nice touch. Character facial animations, though, are just plain hilarious. Von Croy looks like a gaping fish gasping for air. But we've seen these visuals about 4 times over, and there's really not much else to say. But looking at a comparison from Tomb Raider 1 to The Last Revelation, there is a huge difference, and the fact that they were able to upgrade the visuals in each game is absolutely amazing. The area in this game that got the biggest upgrades will have to be the Fmvs. There's just something about PlayStation 1 Fmvs that can either be so nightmarishly terrible or downright cool, and this one falls into the latter. Just look at this cutscene and tell me it doesn't look amazing for 1999.
From our ancient past, it tore through my men like a firestorm. I managed to station our ammunition truck before the beast with a mind to igniting the explosive device in the rear. But with renewed vigor, it forced us back. It was as if it knew of our plans.
Beast or no beast, Sarge. I've got to get into that building.
At this point, you know exactly what Tomb Raider's music is all about. Orchestra and beautiful symphonies, so it should come as no surprise that the music in this one is just as captivating, especially since Peter Connolly, who composed Tomb Raider 3, returns to this game with a new inspiration to capture the style and feel of music by such greats as John Williams, Danny Elfman, and Hans Zimmer. A new addition to the franchise is Jonelle Elliott, who replaces Judith Gibbons as Lara Croft. Elliott would remain the voice of Lara until 2006, and her acting as Lara is actually probably my most favorite, right underneath Camilla Luddington. But comparing the two is a little unfair, as classic Tomb Raider is very different to the reimagining. Von Croy is voiced by Carey Shale and does a fantastic job as Lara's mentor, capturing his emotions very well, from playful banter with young Lara that occasionally comes off as a little creepy, to his sudden change in emotion when arguing with Lara about the iris.
You shall command the ultimate power, that of life or death, over those you choose at your side, and in return, they will bow at your feet and give worship.
Overall, how does Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation perform in the Tomb Raider franchise, and is it still relevant even 22 years later? While not my favorite of the bunch, I do feel that Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation is a worthy entry and would have been a good bookend to this rendition of Lara. Some of the locations are a little too large and can drag on, but the game still captures those Tomb Raider feelings perfectly, and once again treating its fanbase like worthy adventurers and not holding your hand through the whole experience.
Take my hand. I can pull you to safety.
Good to see you again, Lara.
I couldn't leave you.
Overall, I give Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation 4.5 hunky Egyptian gods out of 5. With the oversized and interconnected levels, it can get a little confusing and a little bit annoying, but when placed in a more focused area, the game can really shine. As for games I would let my son play, you've seen the other video, so you get the gist by now. As for nostalgia value, I give this 2 pigtails out of 5. When I played this, I was a little bit too young, and the grand story and epic scale of everything was just completely lost to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, leave a comment down below for games you'd like to see on the channel, or your thoughts on the Tomb Raider franchise. Hit that, subscribe, that's the one, as it always helps me out, and ring that bell if you'd like to be notified. Also, don't forget to check out Eli's channel in the description below for more great covers. Also, if you'd like to join me in playing some games and just talking, you can find me on Twitch at Young Dilf Gaming. Please don't ask. And until then, I will see you guys on the other side. Bye-bye.
You got a friend in me. Some of the folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, bigger and stronger too.